Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to show you why this remix works so well. I posted it on social media a few days ago and I got some really good positive comments about it, and it made me think, well, what is it that makes this specific remix work so well? So I guess before we get into it, I probably better show you what it is I'm talking about. Let's go. Okay, that was a really simple remix, and the reason I wanted to make it simple today was I want to show you some of my thought process, because how I got to that point didn't just happen, although it kind of happens in the end, it just makes sense all of a sudden. But the point was, you can do this on a DJing 400, on a Flex, on your DJing gear, or whether you've got decks like this. I actually wasn't using anything extra like my sampler today. This was about taking a simple track, this track's called Red Crocanti, and then finding something else to go with it. Now I added 2 layers on, but if you just got 2 decks and 2 layers, just add one of these layers on, make that choice. I'll include the details of all the tracks that I've used in the description, so you can go and see how to use it if you want to copy this one specifically, or hopefully it just gives you an idea as to how you can go and do it for yourself. Now, there were 3 things in my thought process when I put this together. Let's do it. Thing 1, I knew what I was looking for. I had a track called Red Crocanti, and actually, because I had a plan as to what I wanted to do with it, I just had to go in search of other tracks that lent themselves to this plan. I'll tell you that in a second. Thing 2, I had a key. Red Crocanti is in the key of 4A. That bit's gonna be so straightforward, but it's what else you can do with it, which I'll explain in a minute. Thing 3, I knew that I wanted to make the drop punchy, and actually, when I started trying to do a little bit of producing, or even if you're just on the dance floor, we all have an expectation as to what happens next. Even if it's the first time you've ever heard a track, there's that bit in the build-up, and then there's that bit of the drop, and then that feeling that you get, and there's a why behind that. So I'm gonna show you what I did. Okay, let's go back to that thing 1 then. So what was my plan? Well, I knew I wanted to add a top to this track. So what was that? So a top is often percussive. It can be toms, it can be cowbells, it can even be synth-led. So when I'd heard this track, I didn't feel like it had anything that punched above it, or there was that space that I could create a bit of a punch above it. So when I was looking for tracks either on Beatport or through my back catalogue, I was skipping straight to the, the middle bit, the breakdown, or the in-between bits before the track comes back in for those empty spots. So in this case, that's when I found this track. If you just come down here, there's a track called Holte, and this does it absolutely perfectly. Let's take a listen. So yeah, there's my higher part of what will become my remix, my top. Now, you could, if you've got a sampler, because I said you can do it all on this. I also have tops on here, but I didn't want to do anything on this today because I want to show you, you can simply do it with these decks. So in this case, if I'd use something like this on a different remix, here's another example of a top. I know that was just percussion, but I got well into that. So yeah, so finding a top doesn't often impact the track that you're playing too much from a key perspective. I'm going to come on to that in a second because it is quite empty. Not a lot of melody to it, but what it does do is it adds that extra layer. So if we just put these 2 things together, let's just see how they sound. See, it's adding that repetitiveness, almost that bum, 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 bum. It's getting you ready. Now that can get a bit boring, so don't overuse it, but it's quite simple. If you go back into your tracks and you're thinking, how can I do more with what I've got? And I want to get into a bit of live remixing. Go and look, go and listen out for those percussive bits of your tracks. If you've got a sampler, you can easily go into Splice and find them for yourself. But you can just as well do it on any old track that you've got. Quite often they'll have a breakdown, they'll have a piece to them that you can go and use. In this case, that's why I use this. Next. So thing 2, I talked about being in key. So over here on this track, Red Crocanti, this is in 4A. Now this, although it is the top that I explained a second ago, it still needed to be in key with this, else it would sound off. I mean, go and try it for yourself. Go and find something. Depending on what you use, it can sound massively off or not too bad. You can get away with it. But this is also in 4A. Now, where I want to take it a little bit further, and this is why the key was really important, was I wanted to add a bit more drama to the build-up of this drop. Now, if I take you to this a second, just take you to the drop itself, it's good, but it could always be more. Let's listen. I mean, it is good, but yeah, I did want to do more with it. So I went and found another track, and this track over here, if you want to come down here, it's called Blue Flash. And what I loved about this track was, I mean, the track's great, and I probably will use it as a whole at one point on a set that I might do. But for this specifically, I wanted to make it work with this compilation that I've put together. Now, if I play it to you, you'll hear the melody that it's got. Here we go. Isn't that just beautiful? And so I was thinking, well, how could I get that to work with another track? And that was when this key bit came into play. I mean, listen to it again. There's no messing with that. I mean, because it is a melody, that is not going to sit with other things. So this was really important for this remix to work. I had to make sure that when I was looking for something, it did tie me down. You know, there's lots of melodies I listen to, but this one absolutely had to be in 4A. So what's made this remix work and my thought process behind it is this is in 4A, this is in 4A, this is in 4A. And that might seem like a really obvious thing to say, but I have heard a few people who've been trying to put remixes together, and actually where it's fallen down is it's just not sat well, it's clashed. So yeah, I wanted to reiterate that point. I've said it on a few videos before, but that thought process I said at the top of the video today, what went into this today, it was knowing how I wanted to set out, and I wanted to use tops. It was to find something that worked in the right key, because I wanted to use a melody. We'll come on to that third bit in a second. So thing 3, bring this all together. And it was my comment about trying to give the listener what they expect so they're not too surprised and they can get into, you know, when it drops, they're ready and they go, oh, a little bit harder. Now, in order to do that, well, we've got our melody, we've got our top, and we've got this track. I'm going to show you 2 things. I'm going to show you what it sounds like if I did absolutely nothing, and then I'm going to show you what it sounds like with what I did. And hopefully you can notice the difference. Let me show you. Now let me show you version 2. Now, there is a subtle difference between those two. I don't know whether you'll be able to hear it when you're listening through your phones, but absolutely on this end. The difference was, and hopefully you noticed it, on version 1, I used no effects. I just added in the top when it was the right time. I had it on full volume. It came in. After the drop, it was still there. It was just on that loop. And I've talked before about loops becoming boring and repetitive. And we don't want that. I mean, we love using loops, but you've got to keep them interesting. So what did I do? Well, I used an awful lot of reverb, and I used filter, and I use a bit of extras up here. But even if you forget this for a second. So when it was time to add that in, a bit like if I was producing, if you were sat on a laptop, you wouldn't just have whatever that new sound that is coming in, just jam itself straight in at whenever you hit play. So when it was ready, I had the volume fader halfway down. I had the filter probably about 3/4 of the way down, so it was a bit foggy. I also had the reverb probably just off halfway. And the reason I did that is reverb just adds a lot of that large room echoey effect to it. And why do I do that? Because I want it to be soft when it comes in. I want to add atmosphere when it comes in. As I'm slowly adding that filter, as it's all about to build up, what I'm really looking for is at that drop to get rid of everything. Every effect that I've put on, you're going to see me quickly rush, and I'll take this off where I added in some ad in here, some cut ad from this effects unit. I'll quickly make sure the filter's all the way up, the volume's all the way up, and the reverb is off. So it goes from being clouded to being punchy. Now let me just, I can just quickly show you what that sounds like without everything else going on. Isn't it weird how you can just vibe to just a beat without anything else going on? I reckon if that was just going round and round, I'd probably just dance to that. Anyway, so you can hear the difference. Just by adding that little bit of reverb, you don't want to add too much. I definitely didn't go to max on it. I added in some extras here, I appreciate. If you haven't got an RMX, you can still do an awful lot with the effects that you get on mixes. But the point was, to make it interesting, it's about building with the track. Don't just jam it in there. Never good to just jam it in there. Right. So, let's finish. So this has been a really easy one today. Nothing too complex, hopefully not too long. The idea was, we got 3 tracks. You can do this on 2. Don't have to have all the other extras. If you've got some effects on your decks, and you've got 2 platters to go, and you can be bothered to go out and try and look for things in key, look for tops, look for that extra thing that you can add, maybe the missing layer that you think I could play with, then it just allows you to be a little bit more creative. It allows you to have a little bit more fun and not just wait for the next track to come on. Because I came from, and I've said before, mixing on Technics, and that was great back in the day, but now we've got all this stuff. Isn't it cool when you can do that little bit extra? Just make a track, give it a little bit more energy, a bit more punchiness. It makes making them a lot more fun, and it absolutely makes DJing to them a lot more fun as well. Hope you've enjoyed that. I'll be back with some more. Keep an eye out, and I'll see you in the next one.